Every Friday at exactly 2 a.m., Dr. Noah Sinclair ordered 1 glass of tequila. Never 2, never 3. The bartender already knew the routine. He placed the glass on the counter without asking, and quietly walked away. Noah sat alone at the rooftop bar, overlooking the sleeping city. His white coat hung over the back of his chair. Dark circles framed his tired eyes, after another 20-hour trauma shift at St. Gabriel Medical Center. People admired surgeons for saving lives. Few wondered who saved the surgeons. For exactly 30 minutes, Noah watched the city lights in silence before returning to the hospital for another shift. It was the only part of the week that belonged to him. Across the street, inside the penthouse of the Moretti Tower, another man watched the same skyline. Only his attention wasn't on the city. It was on Noah. Lucian Moretti, the country's most feared alpha mafia boss, stood beside the floor-to-ceiling windows, with a glass of untouched whiskey in his hand. He had watched the Omega every Friday for nearly 2 years, never approaching, never speaking, never allowing Noah to know he existed. Behind him, his longtime bodyguard, Marco, finally asked the question everyone else had been afraid to ask. "Boss, why do you keep watching that doctor?" Lucian's eyes never left the rooftop across the street. "Because he's the only man who's ever refused to let me die." Marco frowned. "The doctor knows who you are?" "No, he never learned my name." Lucian's expression softened almost imperceptibly. "He saved a stranger. He never realized he had saved me." On the rooftop, Noah finished the last sip of tequila and quietly stood. As he reached for his coat, his phone rang. The emergency department, another major trauma. Without hesitation, he hurried back toward the hospital. Lucian watched until the Omega disappeared from sight. Only then did he whisper the words he had never spoken aloud. "He still doesn't remember me." 3 years earlier, the trauma bay doors burst open just after midnight. Male, late 30s, multiple gunshot wounds, massive blood loss. The paramedics rushed the unconscious Alpha toward Operating Theater 3. No wallet, no phone, no identification. Only blood-soaked clothes and a pulse that grew weaker by the second. Dr. Noah Sinclair was already scrubbing in. Cross-match 6 units. Prep for thoracotomy. Move. The operating room sprang to life. For the next 11 hours, Noah fought a battle that seemed impossible to win. The patient's heart stopped once, then a second time. Each time, the monitors screamed. Each time, Noah refused to surrender. Outside the theater, 2 hospital executives watched impatiently. One glanced at the clock. "This is a waste of resources," he muttered. "He has no family, no insurance. End the procedure." Noah didn't even look up. "While he's on my table, he's my patient." The executive's face hardened. "You've already lost enough blood products on a man nobody will claim." Noah's voice remained calm. "Then bill me." Silence filled the room. No one argued again. Near dawn, the patient's heartbeat finally steadied. The surgery was over. Noah removed his gloves, swayed on his feet, and collapsed from sheer exhaustion before anyone could catch him. When he regained consciousness the following evening, the ICU bed was empty. "The patient?" Noah asked weakly. A nurse smiled. "He disappeared before sunrise." "No name?" She shook her head. "Nothing." Noah simply nodded. "Some patients stayed in your life forever. Others disappeared before you even learned who they were." Across the city, inside a heavily guarded estate, the nameless Alpha slowly opened his eyes. A trusted advisor. It was a worn surgical name badge. Dr. Noah Sinclair. Trauma surgery. Lucian closed his fingers around it. "Find him," he whispered. "But don't let him know I'm looking." 3 years passed. To the outside world, Dr. Noah Sinclair was the miracle surgeon of St. Gabriel Medical Center. Inside the hospital, he was simply the doctor who never said no. "Dr. Sinclair, can you cover another shift?" "Dr. Sinclair, we're short 2 residents." "Dr. Sinclair, the donor's surgery has been moved forward." Every request ended the same way. Noah nodded. Someone's life always depended on it. The younger doctors admired him. He stayed after his own shifts to teach them difficult procedures, bought meals for exhausted interns from his own pocket, and quietly took the blame whenever the department fell behind. What no one realized was that Noah hadn't taken a full day off in almost 5 months. The hospital praised his dedication in public. Privately, they built their staffing schedules around his willingness to sacrifice himself. Then came the night everything broke. 43 hours without sleep. A multi-vehicle motorway crash flooded the emergency department with casualties. Noah had just repaired a teenager's ruptured spleen when another patient crashed on the operating table. He picked up the scalpel again. Halfway through the procedure, his vision blurred. The room tilted. The scalpel slipped from his fingers. Then darkness. When Noah opened his eyes, he wasn't in recovery. He was sitting before the hospital's executive board. The director folded his hands coldly. "Dr. Sinclair, your collapse delayed surgery for one of our most important donors. We are suspending you pending investigation." No one asked whether he had eaten. No one asked how long he had been awake. By morning, every news channel carried the same headline: "Star surgeon under investigation for medical negligence." Across the city, Lucian Moretti silently switched off the television. He stood, buttoned his suit, and picked up a leather folder. "Prepare the car." Marco looked confused. "Where are we going, boss?" Lucian's eyes hardened. "To the hospital." As chairman of their largest charitable foundation, the boardroom fell silent when Lucian Moretti walked in. Every executive at St. Gabriel knew his name, not because of whispered stories about the Mafia, because the Moretti Foundation had quietly donated hundreds of millions to emergency medicine over the past decade. The hospital director forced a smile. "Mr. Moretti, we weren't expecting your visit." Lucian ignored the greeting. "I'd like to see every staffing record, overtime log, and financial audit from the last 5 years." The smile disappeared. "I'm afraid those documents are confidential." Lucian calmly placed a folder on the table. "The foundation financed this hospital. My auditors have full legal access." For the first time, the executives looked nervous. Meanwhile, Noah packed the few belongings from his office: a stethoscope, medical textbooks, a framed photograph of his graduating class. He paused when a nurse hurried into the room. "Dr. Sinclair, someone's asking for you." Noah walked into the hospital garden. Lucian stood waiting beneath the rain. His tailored suit couldn't hide the thin white scar running beneath his collar. "You wanted to see me?" Noah asked cautiously. Lucian nodded. "You saved my life 3 years ago." Noah frowned. "I've treated thousands of patients. I don't remember yours." "I know," Lucian replied gently. "You never asked my name." Noah stared at him in disbelief. "The gunshot victim." Lucian gave a small nod. Before Noah could speak, Lucian quietly continued. "My younger Omega brother died because every hospital refused to treat the child of a Mafia family. My surname became his death sentence." His voice never wavered, but his eyes betrayed years of grief. "After that, I promised no hospital funded by me would ever turn away another patient." Noah suddenly saw the man before him differently, not as the city's most feared alpha, but as an older brother who had spent years trying to save strangers because he couldn't save his own family. Then Lucian handed Noah a sealed envelope. "The audit begins tomorrow, and I don't think your hospital is ready for what we're about to find." By Monday morning, St. Gabriel Medical Center no longer felt like a hospital. It felt like a crime scene. Independent auditors filled the corridors. Federal investigators carried sealed evidence boxes out of executive offices. Computers were confiscated. Financial records disappeared into black briefcases. Doctors whispered in disbelief. The hospital director insisted it was merely a routine review. No one believed him. Noah watched everything unfold from a nearby cafe across the street. His suspension was still in effect. His name was still being dragged through the media. Yet for the first time in weeks, he wasn't being blamed. He was being believed. A senior investigator approached his table. Dr. Sinclair, we've reviewed your staffing history. He placed a thick file in front of Noah. Inside were years of overtime records, week after week, month after month, shifts exceeding 40 hours, without meaningful rest, forged signatures approving schedules Noah had never agreed to. Your collapse wasn't negligence, the investigator said quietly. It was engineered. Noah stared at the pages, his hands trembling. Every time he thought he had chosen another shift, someone else had chosen it for him. Across the hospital, Lucian sat silently as forensic accountants uncovered another layer of corruption. Emergency funding meant for trauma care had been diverted into luxury property developments, executive bonuses, and shell companies. Meanwhile, departments had been deliberately left understaffed to cut costs. Doctors were pushed beyond human limits. Patients paid the price. Then one investigator froze. Mr. Moretti. He slid a document across the table. Lucian's expression darkened. The shell companies receiving the stolen money had one unexpected connection. They were owned by businessmen, linked to the same criminal syndicate Lucian had abandoned years earlier. The hospital hadn't merely stolen from patients. It had been working with the very people who once tried to kill him. Lucian slowly closed the file. This was never just about the hospital. It never was. Lucian stood before the wall of evidence in the Federal Task Force headquarters. Photographs, bank transfers, hospital contracts, shell companies. Then he picked up a faded photograph, taken 3 years earlier. It showed a burning warehouse. "That's where I was shot," he said quietly. Noah looked up. "I thought it was a gang war. That's what everyone was meant to believe." Lucian placed the photograph on the table. It wasn't about territory. It was about a hospital. The investigators listened in silence. Lucian continued. "I had discovered the syndicate was using medical supply shipments to move illegal drugs through emergency hospitals. When I refused to protect the operation, they ordered my execution. The man coordinating it wasn't a mob captain." He slid another photograph across the table. It was the director of St. Gabriel. Noah's face drained of color. "The hospital director." Lucian nodded. "He was laundering millions through pharmaceutical contracts while helping the syndicate hide its shipments. The bullets were meant to silence me before I could expose them." A federal agent leaned forward. "Dr. Sinclair, without knowing it, you saved the only witness who could bring down the entire network." For a long moment, Noah said nothing. 3 years ago, he had simply refused to let a stranger die. He never imagined that one decision had protected countless future patients. Just then, an investigator rushed into the room. "We've intercepted encrypted messages." He dropped a tablet onto the table. One message had been sent less than an hour earlier. "Sinclair is still alive. Finish the job before the tribunal." The room fell silent. Lucian's expression hardened. "They've realized the truth." Noah looked at him. "They're coming for me." Lucian slowly stood. "No." His voice was calm, but unwavering. "This time, they'll have to come through me first." The National Medical Tribunal was scheduled for 9 o'clock. Noah arrived before sunrise. He carried only one folder. Inside were years of overtime records, falsified schedules, and testimonies from junior doctors too frightened to speak until now. Lucian was already waiting outside the courthouse. "You don't have to do this alone," he said. Noah smiled faintly. "I know." As they stepped toward the entrance, a scream echoed across the plaza. A delivery van accelerated straight toward the crowd. People scattered. A young girl froze in the middle of the road. Without thinking, Noah sprinted forward. He shoved the child to safety, just as the van swerved. Lucian reached him first, dragging Noah away moments before the vehicle crashed into a concrete barrier. The driver jumped out and ran. Police officers tackled him within seconds. Inside the wreckage, investigators found a burner phone containing one instruction: "Stop the doctor before he testifies." Hours later, Noah took the witness stand. The courtroom fell silent as he described impossible shifts, exhausted surgeons, collapsing in operating theaters, and executives who valued wealthy donors more than human lives. Then Lucian stood. Instead of calling in armed men or threatening old enemies, he handed prosecutors every financial record from his former empire, every hidden payment, every shell company, every name. "I won't protect criminals," he said evenly. "Not even the ones I once called allies." By evening, the verdict was announced. The hospital director, senior executives, and syndicate leaders were arrested in a coordinated nationwide operation. Justice had won without a single bullet. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Noah. He looked back once at St. Gabriel, then quietly removed his hospital ID badge. "I saved lives there," he whispered, "but I can't heal in a place that almost destroyed mine." He walked away, leaving the badge behind. 2 months later, the scandal at St. Gabriel had transformed healthcare across the country. New laws limited doctors' working hours. Mandatory mental health programs were introduced for medical staff. For the first time, hospitals were required to protect the people who protected everyone else. One morning, Noah received an invitation. It wasn't from another hospital. It was from the Ministry of Health. A brand new trauma institute was being built to replace everything St. Gabriel had failed to become. The position of medical director had been reserved for him. During the interview, the minister asked, "What would you change first?" Noah didn't hesitate. No surgeon should ever feel guilty for going home. The best way to save patients is to stop sacrificing doctors. The room fell silent. His answer became the institute's founding principle. Meanwhile, Lucian quietly kept another promise. He dissolved the last remnants of his criminal empire, selling every business still connected to his family's violent past. The proceeds funded emergency helicopters, rural trauma centers, scholarships for Omega medical students, and free surgeries for children whose families couldn't afford treatment. He never attached his name to a single donation. When reporters praised him, he simply declined every interview. One evening, Noah stood on the balcony of the nearly completed institute. Lucian joined him, carrying 2 cups of coffee. "No tequila tonight?" Lucian asked with a faint smile. Noah chuckled. "I think I'm finally sleeping at night." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence no longer felt lonely. It felt peaceful. As Lucian turned to leave, Noah gently stopped him. "Friday." Lucian looked back. 2 o'clock. A small smile appeared between them. Neither needed to explain. For the first time, Friday no longer represented survival. It promised something worth looking forward to. Friday arrived. At exactly 2 a.m., Dr. Noah Sinclair climbed the familiar stairs to the rooftop bar. The bartender smiled as soon as he saw him. "The usual?" Noah looked at the skyline that had witnessed his loneliest nights. Then he smiled. "Not tonight." Before the bartender could ask why, another voice answered. "Make that 2. Lucian Moretti stepped onto the rooftop carrying a small wooden box. He placed it gently on the table between them. "For you." Noah opened it slowly. Inside lay a worn hospital name badge. Dr. Noah Sinclair, trauma surgery. His breath caught. "I lost this the night you saved me," Lucian finished softly. "I found it after I woke up. I've carried it every day for 3 years. Noah ran his thumb over the faded letters. "You could have returned it." Lucian shook his head. "You spent years saving everyone else. I didn't want gratitude to become another burden you had to carry. I waited until you no longer needed rescuing." For a long moment, neither man spoke. The city lights shimmered beneath them. Finally, Noah looked up. "So, all those Fridays?" Lucian smiled. "I wasn't watching a doctor. I was making sure the man who gave me a second life made it through another week." Emotion tightened Noah's throat. For years, he had believed he was invisible. He hadn't been. He had been quietly protected by the one man the world feared most. The bartender returned with 2 glasses of tequila. Lucian raised his glass. "May I keep you company?" Noah clinked his glass gently against Lucian's. "I was hoping you'd ask." As the clock struck 2:30 a.m., neither man stood to leave. For the first time in years, the loneliest doctor in the city didn't drink alone.